Hi guys, it's Dee and welcome to Dee's Yard. I wanted to give you one last garden tour while we're in the month of May before we enter the month of June. I garden East Tennessee Zone 7A and I just want to highlight what's in bloom currently at the end of May. So first let's start around my shed garden. First, you can see that my clematis is out of bloom now, and I do have some white Perfusion zinnias. These are all started from seed. Just coming into bloom right now is the Seaside Serenade Bell Harbor Hydrangea arborescens. I also have some marigolds, also started from seed. There's a Panicle Hydrangea. And then you'll see up front I have a drift of Angelonia. I believe this one is called Archangel. It's a shorter variety. And next to it is a taller variety of Angelonia. In the back on both sides is plain the blue Salvia. In the front, also done from seed, these are yellow Perfusion zinnias. In the back, those are white wands Veronica. More Angelonia on the sides. There also is some Coreopsis in here that are just starting to bloom. And I believe this is called Cream and Red. And then on the ends, I have this pink huff lantana. In the window box, I always overwinter this Diamond Frost Euphorbia. I'll make sure to link that video if you want to see how I do that. And then on either side, these are Supertunia Mini Vista Sangria. I always plan up 2 hanging baskets on each side of the shed, and this year I opted to go for Super Bells. I have 2 of the double blue, 1 lemon slice, and a black currant punch. And I'm really excited to watch everything grow and fill out. On the other side of the shed, I have 3 double play doozy spirea. I think I see a bee on it right now. These are gorgeous. Love them. And this is their natural habit. I don't prune on them at all. Then I have a summer wine 9-bark, and I love the color of the foliage up against the shed. Behind that, I have a daisy called Banana Cream, just getting ready to bloom, next to the fountain. Another Panicle Hydrangea. I did all of these Victoria Blue Salvia from seed, but it looks like a Victoria White seed snuck into my packet. And then right next to my shed garden is a brand new garden that I started last year. And this is the garden that just borders the fence in my backyard. First I have an Annabelle Hydrangea, and I actually propagated this one. I also propagated 2 of the variegated Weigela from a parent plant you'll see next to my deck. Just this spring I added in 3 bee balm, and they're already blooming. The azalea and viburnum just finished blooming, and they were gorgeous. In the back is a spring sonata Indian hawthorn. There's another Panicle Hydrangea. And just starting to bloom are amazing daisies, Daisy May, this Anthony Water Aspirea is just coming out of bloom now. And the alliums are getting ready to bloom. You can see just behind this fence is where I have some of my vegetable garden. In the back there's a totem pole grass, and then I have a drift of meteor shower verbena, some coneflower, sedum, these are autumn joy, this is a hardy hibiscus, then I have a little drift of black eyed Susan, this is a beauty berry called Pearl Glam. I'm about to cut back all my Nepeta. These ones are called Cat's Meow. Behind them I just added this spring, but the bees have been going crazy for them already. This is Midnight Masquerade Penstemon. Then I have some more sedum. I have a crepe myrtle and 3 limelight hydrangeas. Just starting to bloom are these gorgeous flame purple garden phlox. Beautiful. On the other side of the crepe myrtle, I just cut these back. These are dianthus called Paint the Town Magenta, and they're about to bloom again. I love these coneflower. I believe they're called Yellow My Darling. And I have some bee balm. And then I recently just planted these daylilies. They're supposed to be evergreen, and I believe it's called Stella. Behind that is a cleome. I just cut these 2 back, and I had a little bit of vole damage in there. This one's still in bloom. They're called Purple Perfusion Salvia. Some more coneflowers. Climbing up my garden arbor that I built last winter is a muscadine grape called Triumph, and I'm very excited because this year I'm going to let it fruit, so I'm going to be able to try them out. But you can see they've already reached the top, so now I'm going to start training them over. This side is a little bit behind. It did reach the top last year, but my dog actually chewed it down, but that's okay because they're so vigorous, it's already growing back again. Next to that are some salvia I just planted this spring. They're called Violet Riot. That's a Rosa Sharon. Bee balm are just coming into bloom. Behind the bee balm are 3 daylilies called Going Bananas, and the yellow pairs perfectly with the purple. There is a crepe myrtle right here, and this summer on my to-do list I plan on repurposing a garden bench to go right here. I think that'd be a perfect location. In the front I have some Victoria white salvia that I did from seed, 3 dianthus. These are Chapel Hill Yellow Lantana. And in the back I have some Tequila Sunrise Coreopsis. There's also a hardy hibiscus and a deciduous azalea. The 2 wine and roses Weigela finished blooming. This is a kaleidoscope Abelia. And then I have 3 yarrow called Firefly Peach Sky. And then just starting to bloom, this is Miss Manner's Obedient Plant. Before I move on, let's go out to the vegetable garden. Along the fence are all my Indeterminate Tomatoes. They're coming along beautifully. I'll tell you all the varieties once I start getting some mature tomatoes on them. Then at the end I have some cucumbers. These three are Determinate Tomatoes. And then in the back row, I have all my squash, except this one. This is Blue Hubbard squash, and it is said that squash bugs really prefer the Blue Hubbard. So my hope is that all the squash bugs will go after this one plant and keep all my other squash left alone. We shall see how that works. I do have a couple volunteer tomatoes that just seeded themselves from last year. I'm pretty sure they're all yellow pear tomatoes. So I'm just gonna leave them alone and let them do their thing. This row has all my melons. Here's all my squash. And then in the back is all my corn. On the other side of this cypress continues the border garden around the fence. Some of this garden was created last spring, but majority of this garden was actually planted this spring. So I have a Limelight Hydrangea, a Beauty Berry. These are called Opening Act Romance Garden Phlox, and they were beautiful in full bloom. However, we had a big storm come through, so a lot of the flowers fell off and they are flopping over, but they're still really pretty. The three Encore Azaleas finished blooming. I love the Dianthus, beautiful foliage. In the front, we have Purple Potion Veronica. These are Panicle Hydrangea, a couple of butterfly bushes. This is Moonglow Juniper. Just recently planted were some alliums. This is some Coreopsis, some more Salvia. This is an Agapanthus. The Baptisia is out of bloom now. Just recently planted was some hummingbird mint or Agastache. Rosa Sharon, and then we have Cloudburst Garden Phlox, and they are an early blooming phlox. Absolutely beautiful. Just because we had those storms come through, a lot of the flowers fell off, but they are still really gorgeous. Up front are some sedum, some more Angelonia, some Limelight Hydrangeas, more hummingbird mint, and this is a newly planted smoke bush. These are a new release for 2023 called Magic Show Ever After Veronica. I absolutely love the color on these Veronica. Behind them is a Fothergilla. I put in some more garden phlox and some daylilies. All this is newly planted, all done this spring. This is a Gara called Stratosphere White, 9 bark, and some more bee balm. This tree I did plant in the fall is called Spring Glory Serviceberry. This Baptisia just came out of bloom. Another Panicle Hydrangea. There's a Dwarf Crepe Myrtle in the back. This is a jewel box Distillium, and it suffered big time during the late freeze. It completely went brown, and it's just now getting its new foliage. I'm really happy that it's recovering. Another plant that took a big hit during that late freeze are my Dwarf Pugster butterfly bushes. They all died back to the ground. Usually by this point, they would already fill in this area, but because they all died back, they're struggling a little bit. However, I am very grateful that they are still alive. If you watched my previous video, then you know that I added 3 brand new blueberry bushes to this area that I'm very excited about. I also have some strawberries, and I have basil as well as some thyme. Next to my blueberries are some leftover boxwood that I propagated. You will see that around the pond garden. Then I have my elevated garden bed that I built, I think, 1.5 years ago. I'll make sure to link that video if you're interested. I have both yellow and red onions in here that I did from seed, and they're bulbing up beautifully. In the back row, I have some jalapenos. They're Hello Fuego. Producing already. And I have some bell peppers, and they're called Big Bertha, so they get very large, great for stuffing. I have some parsley, and I just recently seeded for some cilantro and dill. And then I have some bush beans that are doing beautifully. Next to my elevated garden bed, I absolutely love this barberry. It's by the Sun Living Plant Collection called Orange Rocket. Look how many colors it has. So striking. This year I decided to put all my garlic in a container, and it's coming along beautifully. Next is around the porch garden. And first I have these beautiful 2 Jubilation Gardenias, and they are just starting to bloom, and let me tell you, they are beautiful and so fragrant. I love them. There's also a very narrow Rosa Sharon in here. Here's the parent plant of the variegated Weigela that I showed you earlier that I propagated. And here's also the parent plant of the previous showed Annabelle Hydrangea that I propagated. I'm playing the blue Salvia. This is that brand new Cascade Hydrangea called Fairy Trail Bride, and it's just getting ready to bloom now. Next to that I have a Radiance Abelia. Salvia needs to be cut back. Here's another Pugster butterfly bush that was damaged during that late freeze, so it died back to the ground. It's just coming back. But usually at this point, it's already covered this entire space, so it's very slow this year. 2 cat's pajamas Nepeta that need to be cut back. And there's a look at my Japanese maple. You may see on my porch I have a couple whiskey barrels, and I just have strawberries in there. My kids love snacking on them. I have 2 Dwarf Daydream Loropetalum. This one has always struggled. Another Panicle Hydrangea, that one's called White Wedding. I have 2 on either side, Lemon Lime Nandina, a Weeping Japanese Maple, 3 Pancake Arborvitae, and then just below the Japanese Maple are 2 Encore Azaleas. They're out of bloom right now, but they'll be back in bloom in the fall. Right next to the porch takes us to the pond garden. This Avondale Redbud was planted last fall, but unfortunately because of the last freeze, I did not get many flowers. Around the pond garden are winter Gem Boxwood. They were all propagated here almost 2 years ago, and they were just planted last fall. Also on the outside of the pond garden are 3 cherry trees. This is Macanthus Grass, and I worked heavily on adding a lot more plants to the pond garden area this spring. I added some sedum, blue-eyed grass. This is a weeping Japanese maple, some sweet flag, and you're going to see a lot of the impatiens and creeping Jenny used because they do not mind getting their feet wet. I am filming this in the evening time right now, so all the water lilies are closed. I did add some sedum and creeping Jenny just to soften the edges. There also is pickerel weed, which is gorgeous, and the pollinators love it. It's just getting ready to bloom now. There's an Everillo carex that give a pop of color. Some lamium, another Japanese maple. I have some elephant ears also in a container. There's another container with a Canna Lily and more creeping Jenny. Next to the pond garden, we enter the woodland garden. This garden I've been working on for about 1.5 years. Got some begonias. I have a couple hydrangea macrophyllus, which I'm not sure if I'm going to see any flowers this year just because of all our late freeze. I keep my hostas in a container because I have issues with voles. This is guacamole hosta. Some more begonias. Just added in a bleeding heart. Those are some impatiens. In the back, I have 2 gold dust aucuba, mahonia, Miss Scarlet Elysium, and I'm loving these this year. Autumn Brilliance ferns. Some more impatiens. Encore bells. I love this brunnera so much that I added a second one. I have some goat's beard that I missed. They just finished blooming. Everillo carex. Love the pop of color. I love those autumn ferns so much that I had to add some more in. You guys, I had a beautiful oak leaf hydrangea planted back here, but the voles took it out. I came home one day from work and my oak leaf hydrangea was just laid over. So I took it out. I'm trying to save it right now, but instead I planted this sweet shrub, also known as a Carolina allspice. It's just coming out of bloom right now. I only had one bloom on it. Whoops. Hopefully I can get this vole issue under control. These are 3 Bigfoot Clara. Another hosta, probably my favorite, called Diamond Lake. It's blooming right now. Visions of Stilby coming out of bloom. And as you can see, I have lots of empty space in here to fill up. This Chinese snowball viburnum just finished blooming. It was gorgeous. Kodiak orange deer villa just starting to bloom. I added in some sun patience. I believe they are called compact lilac. This is a Kodiak red deer villa. Both of my snow joey viburnums, I don't think I'm going to see any blooms on them this year. They really got damaged in that late freeze. That's a seducer hosta. The variegation is very nice. And then that takes us to the front of the house garden bed. I did plant in some Supertunia Vista snowdrift in between the Liriope around the walkway. I always plant 2 containers, one on each side of the garage, and this year I opted to go with a centerpiece, a Canna Lily. I actually overwintered this from last year. It's yellow. 2 Supertunia Royal Velvet, and this is Violet Night Sweet Alyssum. Some corabells and sedum, and these are Canna Lilies that come back every year for me. The weeping Japanese maple has filled in. And then on the front porch, I have 3 containers with coleus. This one has creeping Jenny as well. And I overwinter the coleus every year. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this May garden tour, and I will see you in the month of June. Bye guys.